All right, let's see if I show up. And we're live. All right, so we are live, guys. Thank you guys both for joining me today. And thank you everyone who's in the audience who's joining us today. So today, just to give you guys some quick background, I've got John and Michelle from Airbyte. They recently just closed 26 million in funding. So I figured it'd be interesting for people who want to know more about that process. But also, I think what's interesting, since my channels focus a lot on data engineering, is they focus a lot on the concept of like data integrations with Airbytes, and they're trying to solve a lot of the problems that I work on a daily basis. So I want to kind of hear from them, kind of one, their backgrounds, and two, how they kind of stumbled on the whole concept of Airbyte and their thought process. So yeah, if you guys want to give a quick background on yourselves, John, do you want to start?
Sure. So Airbyte is actually my fourth startup. The two first ones were B2C products, one in France, one in the US. I came in the US in 2012, sold the second one in 2016. And then since then, I've been into DevTools. And my third startup actually was an engineering management platform on top of all the engineering tools. And we had to build all those ETL pipelines. And I got scars from that. It was a nightmare. That's when I was exposed to the data integration problem. Michel?
Yeah. So, I mean, on my side, I've been working on data since I started my career actually in 2007. And I would say that one of the most defining experiences that I had was when I moved in the US in 2011 and joined, back in the day, a small startup called LiveRamp. And I stayed there for 6 years now. It's a public company. And I was head of integration and director of engineering over there. And basically my team was building, managing, supporting, and scaling thousands of different connectors. So how do we bring customer data into LiveRamp system, and then how do we export that data across all the MarTech and AdTech ecosystem? And I think we all got scars from data, otherwise we would not be there. That was the biggest scars. And actually, many of the team members at Airbyte also come from LiveRamp, so they also have this experience on like what does it mean to build connectivity for data and how do you move data around efficiently.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Again, being a data engineer, we repeat the same code over and over again. So yeah, I'd love to if you guys would like to kind of break down that thought process in terms of trying to solve this pain point and why is there so much value coming into this place just to begin with, right? Like there's tons of companies kind of, I think, flooding into this. So what's the pain point that they're really trying to solve, and how are you guys solving it that you feel is kind of unique?
So go ahead, John.
Go on.
Okay. So I would say that the data space has evolved quite a bit since the early 2000s. It was already a prime before, but since 2016, 2015, I think we've changed how organizations are consuming data. Like the data warehouses that we have access to now are so good and so simple to use that we can enable new type of roles to actually consume data and extract insights from data. And data is becoming more ubiquitous in organization because of that. It used to be, this is the domain of data engineers and this is the domain of engineering. Now it's moving for roles that are less technical, but very, very data savvy. And what we see now is that these roles, like data engineering team, often become a bottleneck for enabling these roles. And what we see is like a new generation of tools that allow these roles to be efficient with data. And the problem we're trying to solve with Airbyte is exactly this one, which is we have all these people that want to do something with data, but first of all, they need to have access to the data. And that is the problem we're trying to solve today. And that is a problem that everybody is facing in the industry, where you have data all over the place, you want to bring it, and you want to enable these roles. And that's what we are, that's the problem we're solving. John, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, you have more and more tools being used in companies. So like those silos are just growing up. And the problem is getting bigger with time for every company. So now that you have those warehouses, that's why Fivetran was very successful at it. But when we started with Airbyte, we interviewed with all of the current solutions, the customers of those current solutions. And we managed to have like 45 meetings in total. And so all of their clients, like all 100% of them, was also building and maintaining their own in-house connectors on the side while paying for ETL or ELT tools. And that's how we came to the open source approach to Airbyte, where we would solve the problem entirely for a company, where you would never have to build and maintain by yourself on site. So that's how it came to be.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I've definitely, like, again, working kind of in the consulting space, that's sometimes where I come in. It's like they're like, oh, we have connectors for everything except for these three things. And so like then you often have to create, you're just creating that code anyways. And then again, that leads to more maintenance and more problems and more cost, right? And that's like you guys have kind of talked about, like the whole goal here is to not need 20 data engineers because you've got so many different data sources, and you almost end up needing one data engineer per source. Sometimes it feels like, because it's so much. I think that's like you also talk about like the fact that things are exploding. And I think that's another problem that like people don't, maybe they discuss enough, or maybe they don't, or maybe it's like quietly happening. It's like, we want all this insight into like almost like day-to-day, like second-by-second information of what people are doing, right? Like with IoT devices, with all this stuff. But it's like the amount of work that goes into maintaining those systems is like enormous. And it's this weird quiet space, right? Like I think we're maybe all seeing the articles kind of increase in terms of like, data engineering is becoming even more popular, where to me, it's like, it's been popular for the last 20 years. You just, we're just not talking about it like data science, because it's this quiet work that we do behind the scenes, and in order for data scientists to even start looking at their stuff. So I think, yeah, that definitely adds value to your whole proposition when you're trying to say like, hey, I mean, do you want to do data science work? Well, start by speeding up your bottleneck, like you just said. I guess how like, again, going back to kind of like providing this value, like how do you go about talking to, I guess, VCs in terms of like, okay, this is why this is valuable in comparison to something like Fivetran, where it's like, again, one, it's open source, so that in itself probably has its own challenges, but two, again, it's more code heavy, where some people might be like, oh, well, we want this like click and easy drag and drop thing, low code's the new thing. So how do you guys kind of differentiate and make sure people see the value for you guys?
So I would say like the data space has always been dominated by open source. And the reason is you don't just do data, you do data to serve your organization. And when you think about it, every single organization is different. So everybody has different needs around data. And that is why like open source is generally the more malleable type of software. And that is why it's been so popular. Every domain in data engineering and in data has a winning open source alternative all the time. Yeah. Except maybe the warehouses, like where probably it's so specific that that's the one where we still are waiting for an open source solution. But otherwise, every other domain is. And at that point, when we talk to VC, what is important is to set that frame, because that is the reality, and we want to make sure that people see it, that open source leads to better data systems. And John, you want to continue?
Yeah. So there's this aspect where we're very different, which is like we're open, and so we open / modern. And when I understand, like on the hosted solution, you have a few clicks and then you can deploy on prod. It works. On our side, like it takes 2 to 5 minutes just to do the same, but more in the testing environment on your workstation. But then for now, you need to still like deploy in your servers in your private cloud to have a prod deployment kind of. And that's actually why we're focusing on a hosted solution as well. That should be coming by the end of the year. But and we have tons of requests for it, like tons, because you see that the open source will, with the promise of addressing all your connector needs, this is something that has a lot of value. We see that. And also another thing that we see is that everybody hates the current pricing model, and we want to disrupt that. We have a clear we know how we're going to do it. We know how we're going to disrupt it. But and every interaction we have, they say, yeah, it should be something really different. So that's what we have in mind, and how we think like Airbyte can disrupt the market with these two aspects: open, and also like change how data integration is priced today.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's definitely an interesting point to bring it. Like pricing is always like kind of this weird thing when you're talking about like data connectors, because some of them it's abstracted away so far away that it's like, okay, but how much is this really going to cost me by the end of the month? And you won't know until the end of the month. And I mean, some of that I think is probably due to the fact that a lot of this is probably built on Amazon or something similar. So it's like they don't even really know, right? Like we're just kind of basing this off of Amazon, so we're not really sure either. So you've got like this abstraction on abstraction. So pricing is always, I think, a challenge. So I guess like, as far as like going through this journey, like how did you guys go from like, again, I think last year you had like what, 5.2 million in funding at some point, and now, recently just raising 26 million. How did you like first get that first 5 million, which isn't a small amount for a seed? I think that's a decent seed round. And then like now, I mean, right, Series A is at 26, which is another big round. Like how did you actually go from idea to getting that first 5 and then now the 26? Because again, I think a lot of people read articles and assume, oh, it's so easy to raise funding, like all these companies get funding, but I don't think that's true. I've seen plenty of companies struggle and never get funding. So I'm just curious, like what you guys did, what was successful, where you kind of failed, maybe where like your different lessons along the way.
Yeah, and the first 5 million, basically, it took us a year to get there. It's not something we decided we're going to start a company and suddenly we'll raise 5 million. And we've talked a lot about like how we started Airbyte early 2020, went through YC, did an early seed round, and also how we realized that we were actually building the wrong product back in the days. So we knew we had a problem space we wanted to address, which was data, but we were building the wrong product on top of it. And that is where, like, when COVID hit the world, that's when we started to see we had like the light in front of our eye. Like, we're not doing the right thing. Like, it is not a product that people actually care about. And at that point, we just pivoted. And it sounds easy looking back that we did this pivot, but when you live it, it is very hard because you have a team who've dedicated a lot of energy into building this previous project, and suddenly you need to say, you know what we've done was not good. We need to change completely, or we're going to go in a wall. And that is like the behind the scene that often like people don't see, is that you have to make this very, very hard decision of we're going to scratch what we're doing. And after that, yeah, John, I'll let you talk about how we pivoted to Airbyte.
So we grew gray hair over this pivoting moment. So we started on Airbyte per se in like as is right now in end of July, released MVP end of September. So we were not talking to VCs at that point. Release the MVP, so open source. Mm-hmm. At that point, you get a bit more visibility, and you start to have like to being pinged by VCs to start receiving emails. And the goal at that point for us was, okay, if we're gonna do it right, we're gonna meet. We want to identify who we want to work with for the remaining life of the company. So we want to meet with a lot of them and understand who understands open source and who understands data infrastructure. So we time boxed like the moment, the period when we wanted to meet them. So it was like 2 weeks after the 0.2 version, and so in this moment, this 2 weeks period, I think we met with 45 of them, and honestly, you'll see that more than half don't really understand data infrastructure because they haven't either already invested in such a company, or you see that the hire that's done is pretty recent on that infrastructure because on that industry. So at that point, and just so you know, like Axel was our investor number 43.
Okay, wow. Number 43. Wow. Okay, wow.
Yeah, and so from that, so it wasn't easy. Just that everybody knew us. We knew them, at least the people we wanted to talk to, and that was pretty intense, I would say. But after that, then we knew we're a pretty transparent company, and we for our investors as well, and for our potential investors also, we keep them in the loop. So every time for the top VCs that we've met, we try to keep in contact with them pretty regularly. So all of this helps whenever we have opportunities to raise money, and that's how the Series A came to be.
Mm-hmm.
You would add anything, Michel?
Yeah, I would say one thing that is important when you're doing fundraising, but these are like more tactical thing, is you want to make sure first of all, not tactical but strategic, is you need to really make sure that you're finding a partner not just for the money that they can bring you, but for what they can help you on for your business. And that's what, like with John, when we had like a very large number of VC that we wanted to talk to, and our first goal was, can we identify 10 partners that gets it? And that was the only goal for that fundraising. And then after that, and you can see that is you don't need to train them on why is it good to do open source, why is it good to work on data. And what they will do is actually they will question you, and they will make you think forward about what you're building. And I think when you start seeing this little signal, you know that you have a partner that is going to pull you forward instead of drag you down by just asking you, okay, how do you monetize? How do you monetize? How do you monetize? Which for an open source project is not what you want to think of at the beginning. What you want to think of is, I want to have a very solid, very lively community. I want to focus on like the contributors, etc., etc. And VCs who understand that were the good fits for us, and Axel was one of them.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I think that's something that you guys, I think, have done well. In fact, I think I recall seeing a blog post where that's like most of what you talked about was just like how we built this community, and like the growth rate of the community. Because yeah, like you said, like when you're doing open source, it's about getting as many contributors as you can. It's or at least, and like people that are very passionate about contributing as well. It's kind of like, again, even with starting a company, it's like the more you can get people who are passionate and who are also very smart working on that product, regardless of maybe what the product is, it's like something good's going to come out probably on the other side, right? Like it's like, well, it's got to be something good, right? Like we got a bunch of smart people on it, so yeah, that makes a ton of sense. So you also said you had like your top 10 partners. How many of them said yes and how many said no? I'm just curious. Or did they all say yes?
I would say so. At the beginning, when we raised this seed, we only wanted to raise a small amount to do the Series A later, and so it was too small for those VCs. But they asked us, can we raise more? Can we raise more? So, and we said no, until Axel and Amit told us, well, that's silly of you not to raise more because you need it actually. And he convinced us to switch our mindset over it. And that's, we opted, like for us, Amit, he pushed us the most forward in how we thought about this. So we raised more than we wanted. And that could have opened the doors to like all of them that was waiting to that. But we already knew that we wanted to work with Amit, and so for us it was we didn't seek the others like whether or not they're going to invest at that amount or not. Okay. So I can't tell you how many of them.
Okay, you can't. Okay,
I can't.
Okay, that's fine. What was I also thinking along those lines? I think it's funny that you guys had to get convinced to get asked for more money. It's like, wait.
But I think it was really, we like John and I, we are not expert at open source. We're also learning about what does it mean to build an open source company. And that's why, like, you want to find a partner that can help you think about it, that has the experience, and where you can do sometimes pattern matching or at least see some walls that are coming in your way. And one thing that's what Amit was very important in like how we are thinking about it today is like how important it is to invest and to move very fast with the community. And that was something we had underestimated on like the cost and the velocity that we needed. And so that was like I would say that was the convincing point for us to, you're very right. That is indeed what is going to be fueling the project and the product. So we have to invest as much as we can today.
Yeah. So like in terms of like how, I guess I'm curious, like what does that mean in terms of like investing for the community, right? Are you just like investing in growing it? Are you investing in kind of content? Like what's kind of the focus in terms of like, if you can talk more in that strategy kind of tactical way, like I'm curious.
So there are several things. The first one is making the contributor experience very easy, easier and easier. For instance, we released the connector development kit 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it's a low-code framework that enables you to build a connector within 2 hours instead of 2 or 3 days. And the goal is, right now it only addresses REST APIs as sources, but the goal is to extend to all sources and then destination and reduce the time from 2 hours to less than 1 hour and even less. And by doing so, you will have a lot more contributors because it becomes so easy that it's a no-brainer to build a connector with us rather than doing it in-house. And so that's one thing. The second thing is it's a lot of content. All our marketing is just content. There's no like marketing budget. So it's all about providing value to the user and the developer community with content. And there are many ideas that we're playing with, like typically everything about thought leadership around data integration and data engineering. We want to also participate in this. So there are many things we have in mind. And right now we're even like recruiting. We have a dev advocate. We're recruiting a dev evangelist to help us on that. So yeah.
And we're also investing a lot on like how can we help people on Slack. Like, we have one person today that is dedicated to helping that with very engineering driven and understand like the problem of the community because he's also a data engineer and he spends all his time like supporting people and just saying like how can they make them successful using Airbyte. And of course all of that has a cost and
I don't know if we coined the term user success engineer because you have customer success engineer, but it's related to revenues. But for us, it's not related to revenues. It's just like for users. So his role is user success engineer.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. So it's kind of like a combination between like a sales engineer and like just being that like very usually customer success. Yeah. Someone that helps, someone that acts as the extension to the documentation, essentially. Like, right, when you run out of documentation and you run into a problem, who do you call? You go to Slack. No, I think. Go ahead.
His entire goal is not to make revenues. That's the point. His entire goal is to make you successful.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's a great way of thinking about it because, I think especially if you're in the Bay Area, it seems like everyone's like, how are you monetizing? And like you said earlier, it's not about the monetization. It's about developing this healthy community of people that want to build and contribute. Speaking of people, we do have, there's like 2 questions from the same person, but let's see if I can show this. So more out of curiosity, someone's curious on what tech stack is Airbyte built on?
So we have 2 parts to Airbyte. We have what we call the core platform and we have the connector platform. Core platform is mostly written in Java. It's everything related to like scheduling, config management, APIs, etc., etc. And connector is a bit like language agnostic, but I would say today the majority is in Python. And then we have the front end, which is TypeScript.
Okay. That makes sense. And then the other question they had was more around, do you support NoSQL data? I don't know, actually. If you understand that question, let me know, but I'm actually a little bit unclear on what the question is asking.
I'm going to assume that do we support sources that are NoSQL? Okay. We have a few, like we have Mongo, and we're adding more and more. And the thing is, it is open to the community to create their own sources or their own destination. I don't think we have destinations like NoSQL destination, but I have no doubt that this will come in the next few months.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. Actually, like just thinking about that, like there's a provider that I've been working with a little bit. As far as like they're more than just ETL, ELT kind of things, but like there's something I want to update on their SFTP thing, and I'm just like, I don't really like how you guys did this, and I can't really do certain things. So yeah, it definitely makes a lot of sense to have this like open source where it's just like, if I could just change this would help me too. Exactly. Right? Like it's just like this would help everyone. So yeah, I think it's interesting that you've approached this way. I guess just kind of like, since we have no more questions specifically here, what do you think were like the biggest, I guess, mistakes you made while you were trying to, like, if you made any, while you were looking for funding? Like, did you have some moments where you gave a presentation and like you just realized you messed up, like the room was quiet and no one wanted to fund you, or like, yeah, what was kind of those moments for you?
John, I'll let you. I'm trying to remember.
The orange graph. It's exactly this. So
orange.
So it's just so I'll explain to you. But when you meet with 45 investors, like in 2 weeks, you start to have some fatigue, and at the end, you just like when you find the partner you want to work with. At that point, you just want to get it done, and at that point, but the best thing is still to negotiate and to say, I've got alternatives, I've got other like a term sheet. And so in the end, the best is to have like 3 or 4 like investors that want to invest, and then you can optimize for valuation. For us, it was never about the valuation, it was for the who we wanted to partner with. But if that would be the advice I would give. I don't know, Michel, if you do the same. Like, if you want to optimize for valuation, get 3 or 4, and then you can have some, not bidding war, but like get the valuation at the point you want it to be.
Yeah, so it sounds very similar to like negotiations with salaries, right? Like if you're in the Bay Area, it's like, don't get for one. Make sure you have, get your Google, get your Amazon, get your Uber, and then go back. But I'm sure it's very tempting. Like it's the same way. Yeah, I'm sure it's the same. Like you just said, it's the same feeling, right? Like, oh, I need a job, so I just need to get it and do it. So I can definitely see that. I can understand that feeling.
Yeah, I would just add one thing to it is, yes, valuation is important, and your ownership is important. But in the end, don't underestimate the fact that working with the right partner is going to make your valuation better over the long term. So sometimes you need to make the trade-off. You can see that as you have the total value of the company, you have your ownership, and in front of it, you have like something 0 to 1, which is, are you successful or are you not? Like, are you a company that's alive or are you a dead company? And I think when you start a company, you need to be optimizing for being very, very close to 1. Like everything you can take that will make you successful, you should take it, even if it means that the other weight of your ownership sometimes goes down. I mean, at some point you need to really focus on that. But for us, our goal is we want to make sure that Airbyte is a company that's going to be there for the long term, and a partner has a lot of impact on this.
That's very important, because we knew we could get better offers for valuation if we wanted to for Axel, and we didn't want to push them because we knew we wanted to work with Amit because he was the one that could bring us the most to the one, and that was what happened with also Chetan for Series A. It was so obvious. Like, we only talked to one VC for the Series A because we knew we wanted to work with Chetan. There's no point like in talking to the others. So we had a deck we presented to one VC. And
wow, bold.
Interacting with Benchmark was just mind blowing, and we knew we need to work with them.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that's a very interesting, like, targeted approach, and I think it makes a lot of sense. It's almost similar, like when you similar when you think about like getting that first job. It's like, who do you actually want to work for? Or at least maybe I often say like the second job, right? Because the first job you need to get because you need money, but the second job, it's like, okay, now take your time and now be like, okay, who do I actually want to work for? Where am I going to learn more, right? Because those should be your focuses, right? Like like the same way you want, like, who can you partner with? Like, learning is kind of that same partnership, right? Like, I mean, I guess that's what you're getting out of these VCs. It's like, what can they bring to me that is, again, more high level, more like learning? What do you like? When you say that, like, what does that mean, I guess, to you guys in terms of like, what are you learning from these VCs, or what value is this partnership bringing in ways you couldn't get it, I guess, from other people?
I would say for example, Benchmark and even Axel, they have tons of open source company in their portfolio. So they understand the DNA of what it means to build an open source company, and they understand like the lever that we have to make the community healthy and and lively. They understand like which level we have around, like how do we go for commercialization, and also they have expectations that are reasonable for an open source company, which is they don't expect you to have revenue the day they start investing in you. They understand that it is something that takes time to build, but they have this experience. And yes, it's a different company, but suddenly you get access to all this information about like how all these different companies have been built, what problems they faced, so you can be prepared to when you're going to face these problems. And I would say that this is probably one of the biggest value we see from a partner today. John, you want to add anything?
Yeah, no, that's exactly this.
That makes sense. Yeah. All right. So, okay, just as like maybe a quick summary, because I think we talked about this in the beginning, but someone or two people were curious more about kind of what was the moment you two decided to found this company. I think you talked about this a little bit in the beginning, but maybe like just give a quick summary for them, just so they can recap it. But if you guys want to go watch from the beginning, you guys can probably find this answer somewhere.
We'll tell a new story.
Okay, new story. Oh, look at that.
No, because we didn't tell this one, but so Michel and I, we've known each other since 2012, and we had like two side projects. We always wanted to work together and coach each other like during the years. And at the end of 2019, Michel quit his company and because he wanted to found a company, and I was at the end of my third one, and he told me, okay, let's brainstorm some ideas together. And I told him, you know what? After my third startup, I'm a bit tired, so I can brainstorm with you, but I won't join you. And so what happened is we brainstormed for 3 months, and after that, like just we applied to YC with it, and I had like some like executive like offers and great offers like from great companies, and he was like, so are you going to do this with me? I said, come on. And so at the end, FOMO kicked in, and I always wanted to work with Michel and say, okay, you know what, that's a golden opportunity. Let's do that now. And so that's how it happened. But yeah, I would say like, no, I would say something is, I've got like 3 stars before, three different co-founders, and you be really cautious about your co-founders, that you really, really align on how to manage your company and the vision and all of this, because it is super important for your company. And like with Michel, well, this is like I knew we were really in line. We imagined the company, managing the company the same way, because we knew each other for a long time. And I think that was a blessing for for even the pivot, even the hard moments, all moments of the company. So this is something that people don't pay attention enough. It's not about competences. Okay, I need a technical like a co-founder. No, it's not about that. You won't do a great job if you two are just like, it's not both of you. It's not your baby, and also like this complete alignment.
Yeah, that's extremely spot on, and it's really like the way you think about building the company. Each of us should be an extension of the other, but at the same time, it is extremely important that you don't step on each other's feet in terms of competency. John and I are extremely complementary, and I think that's what you want to look for in a co-founder as well, which is you want to be able to focus and to paralyze yourself, like the team, so that we can go fast and we have a lot of velocity in like how we're building it. And I think that's been serving us extremely well so far.
Yeah, no, I think that's something that maybe doesn't get talked about. Like I think I've definitely not necessarily started companies, but like made my fair share of mistakes when it comes to like partnering with someone who's like, you think they are something, and maybe they'll bring a certain skill set and then they don't, and it's like then you just it's almost like what I assume a bad marriage is, right? Like it's like you assume they're doing something, they're not doing that thing, and then you don't want to communicate with it, and it's its own problem. Okay, someone.
If you have doubts about your co-founder, don't create a company with that person, because this doubt is going to grow and grow and grow, and it's going to become the main issue of the company.
It's exactly like marriage. You won't get married with someone you have doubts on. You don't do that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. That's very sweet of you, John.
So today we are very happily married today with John. So
Yeah.
Yes. Just as a quick question for your background, and I think this is interesting because I made a video about like the difference between software engineers versus data engineers, and to me it's like sometimes they're the same-ish, right? Like sometimes there's like data engineers are more analytical and software engineers are more purely software, or depends. So for your background, Michelle, would you say you're more of a data engineer, software engineer, kind of somewhere in the middle? Where do you kind of feel like you fit in this role?
That is a very good question, and I'm going to be very transparent with you. I think these terms, the meaning that you give them depends on which company you're in.
Yeah.
I think, obviously, if you're in a startup and you're exposed to data and you're also building software, you're both.
Yeah.
But I don't have there is no clear cut between the two. And it is very different depending on what the organization is. You will have organization in which the software engineer is doing most of the data processing. You will have other where it's completely isolated. You have people who build the product and people who are just building data pipelines. You will have data teams and data engineers who are provider of data services to other teams, whereas another organization where they actually own all the processing and all the analytics that's made is just a role you are working with data. I think that's the definition of a data engineer. And after that, what you're going to do is going to be based on what your organization is and how it's structured. But I don't think there is a clear definition for either one. Software engineer, yes.
Yeah, no, for sure. I definitely agree. I don't know, John, if you've got anything to add to that. No. Yeah. But just to add my own personal experience, yeah, it really ranges, because in some companies, again, you're the software engineer that just works on data, and in other companies, you're the data engineer that's purely focused on making pipelines, and those pipelines could be drag and drop code. You might have no code. You might just do SQL, and that might be the only thing you do. And then it's more just about the data aspect of it and not really the engineering aspect. But in some companies, you're developing all the infrastructure too, like all the maintenance or all the dependency management, all this crazy stuff. And hopefully you're using something like Airflow or Airbyte or anything other than, please don't go custom code. I think we're past custom code at this point. Hopefully there are too many options. So all right, so as far as someone else has a question on valuation, since you guys referenced this earlier, valuation over ownership, where do you guys stand given the stage of your company? Where are you guys really looking and focusing on?
So I would say that when you go in Series B, Series Z, you're in hypergrowth, you have product market fit clearly. So it's all about execution. And at that point, you have a lot less risk for your investors. So clearly, at that point, valuation and optimizing for less dilution is very important. Because, on 0 to 1, they won't have much impact.
Yeah.
But at the earlier you are, the more impact on the 0 to 1 scale that we have. So at that point, it's more, you optimize to the hood. So it's kind of like you optimize for the valuation to get this partner.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah, it's kind of a combination. So, and depending on the stage. Okay, I think that makes sense. Just someone's also curious about the complementary comment that you asked. Do you think to be complementary is something that can be built, or it's just natural? It sounded like you guys had a friendship for a while, so it probably was a little bit maybe of both for you guys. Maybe you guys were just we're naturally friends.
For the complementarity here, I do think it can be built, where you can decide if you have two engineers of two salespeople that are starting a company. I think you can set the role at the beginning of who is going to be focusing on what, and try to still leverage your strengths. But you will have then, if you're learning it, then you will have this learning phase, so that you might not have the velocity you would have if you just know what you're doing. In our case, John has a ton of experience on what it means to start a company, build, even all the logistics around building a company. I don't have that experience. I'm learning, of course, working with John, but my expertise is on engineering, like how do we build a product. Jonas was an experience on how to build a product. So we are not like completely disjoint. We have an overlap, but there are places where we have strengths that the other one doesn't have. And you want to make sure that we leverage each other for where we have strengths.
Yeah.
And assuming that you will build your competences while doing it. And this is like 90% the case in startups. So it's just mostly about having two different focuses, prioritization, so you have more velocity, and just always like thinking, so you always have the same understanding and complete alignment. But with those two focuses, in any case, you'll learn on the job. And if you have past experience that can help you, leverage them. But like for instance, what just Michel said.
Yeah. All right. I think it makes sense. I think it's almost like, again, going back to the marriage concept. It's like, well, at a certain point, you just have to decide. It's like, well, do you want to make it work or do you not? So yeah, I think that makes sense. So we've got like 4 minutes until 1, and I think that was kind of my target time. So is there anything else, like, I guess, like that you guys want to kind of leave everyone with? Also, if anyone wants to join your Slack, like, can they just go to Airbyte HQ and find probably, join Slack, I assume. So is there anything else you want to leave with people so before we kind of sign off?
Join our Slack because I think it's now the most active Slack around data integration. And at the beginning, it was really focused on Airbyte, but now it's really focusing on data integration as a problem. So if you want to chat with other people that are on this topic, it could be a good thing to do. And then it's really about, we're here for the long run. We really want to commoditize data integration with open source, so that we want to solve this problem, and which is not at all fully addressed right now with the current solutions.
No.
So so if that interests you, just follow us, and happy to chat with you.
What was I was gonna say, it's funny because you say like the most active for data integration, and it just makes me think it's like when I look at like groups on Facebook or look at like the hashtag on LinkedIn, it's like data science, it's like 6 million, and then like data engineering like 2,000. It's like where's the love, guys? Where's the love for data engineering? There's so I think there's so many articles now talking about like data engineering like growing and like hiring, and I'm just like, it's in this way, like there's always been more like data engineering roles than data science roles. It's like because you need to do it first. So I think it's funny that you bring up like most active. It's like, we have like 2,000 people I think on it or something close to on your Slack.
1,400. 1,500. It's growing.
It's growing. Yeah, I think I saw it's growing like exponentially at this point. So if you guys want to learn more, if you guys have problems with your data integrations, check it out. Other than that, it looks like we have no more questions. So thank you guys both for your time. If no one else has any questions, I can end this broadcast.
Thank you very much, Ben.
Thank you, Ben.
Thank you.